You ever have one of those mornings where you swear the universe put you at the exact spot, just so you could say, "Yep, I saw it all happen with my own two eyes. That's what I got for sitting by the window at Frankie's Corner Diner." Second cup of coffee in hand, just as Phyllis Brentwood came stomping in with that queen of the suburbs, energy oversized purse clutched like it held the nuclear code's hair so precisely curled you'd think she was running for office. 45 minutes later, she'd be sitting in handcuffs, shrieking reputation in flames. No lie. The whole place went so quiet you could hear my coffee getting cold. Now you know how folks always say you should mind your business at a diner. Not that day. The second Phyllis walked in, every head turned. One guy folding his newspaper, another closing his laptop, all of us pretending not to look, but you could feel the curiosity humming like power lines. And the hook. She screamed at two black veterans right there in front of everyone, and by the end it wasn't them wearing cuffs, but her. Phyllis, for those not blessed to live in Maple Ridge Estates, had made herself the HOA president for 3 years, running self-appointed, self-righteous, running the community like a prison camp for plants and paint colors. She had color-coded spreadsheets of violations, and if you dared leave your garbage bin out or skipped the annual BBQ, you better believe she'd be on you like white on rice. But she saved her real energy for Jerome Calloway and Calvin Brooks, two veterans who'd sit in the same corner booth every Tuesday, quiet, never bothering a soul, always giving her just enough of a polite nod to stay out of her crosshairs. Until today. You could tell from the start Phyllis thought she had her smoking gun. She marched up to their booth, heels snapping, and everyone in the diner felt the air go sharp, like we were about to witness a car crash in slow motion. Jerome looked up from his coffee, cool as ever. Calvin didn't even set down his newspaper, but his shoulders tightened just a little, a cat ready to pounce. Phyllis cleared her throat so theatrically you'd think she was running a courtroom, then announced to the whole place that she was investigating illegal activities in the neighborhood and had evidence of threats to everyone's safety. Jerome just asked real gentle what violations she was talking about, like he genuinely wanted to know. Calvin folded his newspaper, laid it down, finally looked at her. Just one of those looks that makes a person nervous without a single word. Phyllis whipped out her phone and started scrolling photos of their cars, their visitors, their work schedules, spinning this whole tale about drugs, secret businesses not showing up for HOA events because they were hiding something. Each accusation more ridiculous than the last, but the way she said it, you could tell she believed every word. The diner went dead silent. Nobody wanted to make a sound, not even Frankie behind the counter, and you could feel the tension rising. That's when Jerome smiled. Not friendly, more like the smile of a man who's been waiting for this showdown. He and Calvin both reached for their phones, suddenly not just two quiet guys at breakfast, but something more. Jerome asked Phyllis if she was really sure she wanted to keep pushing, because once we start down this path, there's no going back. His voice was calm, but the challenge was unmistakable. Phyllis doubled down. She said she'd already called the police, that credible threats had been made and the authorities would be here any minute. She actually looked relieved, like she thought she'd won. That's when Calvin laughed, just a low, satisfied chuckle, and the whole diner suddenly realized something big was about to go down. Now here's where things took a hard left turn. Turns out Jerome and Calvin weren't just waiting for Phyllis, they were prepared. Calvin closed his paper and laid it flat, showing the headline, "Local HOA President, Under Federal Investigation for Embezzlement." 3 days old. Right there in plain sight, Phyllis had been accusing them of crimes while they'd been reading about hers. Jerome reached for his jacket, pulled out a slim leather wallet, flashed an official badge. I about choked on my coffee. This man wasn't just some regular vet. He was federal law enforcement. Phyllis's mask slipped for half a second, but she went right back into attack mode, rattling off her evidence as the police finally burst in 4 squad cars, lights blazing, more backup than the Super Bowl. But instead of arresting Jerome and Calvin, the lead officer, Sergeant Martinez, walked right up, shook Jerome's hand, and asked if they were ready to execute the arrest warrant they'd discussed. Phyllis's jaw hit the floor. Calvin, now typing at his laptop, announced to everyone he was a senior investigative reporter for the Washington Herald and had been undercover for 6 months documenting HOA corruption, embezzlement, and civil rights violations. Turns out they'd been streaming the whole thing live, and as Sergeant Martinez read Phyllis her rights, the viewer count ticked past 50,000. Frankie, the owner, just wiped his hands and asked if they needed to clear the diner. Jerome said no, they wanted witnesses. Every accusation Phyllis made, every threat and racist comment was being recorded for the world to see. Calvin then revealed he'd been gathering evidence of forged insurance claims, kickbacks, and fake repairs enough for a 6-part expose that would take down not just Phyllis, but a whole criminal network. Sergeant Martinez explained this wasn't just a local issue. This was federal mail fraud, racketeering, the kind of charges that get you decades in prison. Meanwhile, Frankie announced he'd been letting the investigation run out of his back office for months. His diner was basically HQ for a federal sting, and Phyllis, busy bullying veterans, never noticed. Then came the next bombshell. While Phyllis was yelling about her rights, Jerome calmly opened a folder filled with documents, photos, financial records, audio transcripts. He told the room Phyllis had been running insurance fraud and embezzling over $2 million, targeting elderly and veteran homeowners. Calvin explained his series would expose similar crimes in 3 counties. Sergeant Martinez's radio crackled other arrests were going down: citywide contractors, insurance agents, HOA board members. The scale of it all made everyone's head spin. By now, Calvin's live stream had hit over 200,000 viewers, with people chiming in from all over the country about their own HOA horror stories. Frankie's Diner became ground zero for the biggest corruption bust any of us had ever seen, and every new fact hit harder than the last. The most satisfying moment, Jerome looking Phyllis in the eye and telling her every bit of harassment she'd thrown at him and Calvin was now evidence her racism and abuse of power sealing her fate. But even as the FBI swarmed in, the shocks weren't over. Special Agent Rebecca Torres arrived, announced this was Operation Clean Sweep, and revealed that Phyllis wasn't the top of the pyramid. She was just a pawn in a network that reached the state capitol, state senator, county officials, even regional insurance execs. Raids were happening across 3 states all at once. Calvin's live feed blew up, 500,000 viewers, national news crews racing to the diner, journalists fighting for a scoop. The kicker: Operation Clean Sweep hadn't even started as an HOA corruption case. It began when someone noticed a pattern of fraudulent veterans claims, then uncovered a scheme to launder money, manipulate insurance, and push out elderly residents to flip their homes for profit. Frankie's own brother, a disabled vet, had been victimized. That's why he got involved. Then Jerome dropped the final twist. This was bigger than fraud. The criminal network had been collecting intel on military families and federal employees, selling it to foreign adversaries. Yes, actual spies. What started as HOA drama was now a full-blown counterintelligence case. The diner was locked down. Broadcast cut, FBI and CIA started moving in equipment that made the place look like a scene out of a Jason Bourne movie. Turns out Phyllis and her cronies were unwittingly running a foreign intel operation, collecting dirt on Americans with security clearances, tracking daily routines, and funneling it all overseas. And just like that, our sleepy suburban breakfast spot became ground zero for the biggest espionage bust since the Cold War. I couldn't believe I'd almost skipped breakfast. Weeks later, Frankie's Diner was a pilgrimage site. Journalists, law enforcement, tourists coming to see the booth where 2 veterans toppled a criminal and espionage ring. Jerome and Calvin got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Phyllis got 25 years, plus her cooperation took down hundreds more across 4 countries. Calvin's reporting went global. His series helped expose similar schemes in Europe, Australia, Canada. The FBI made Frankie's Diner a national historic site. But here's the kicker for you, the folks still reading. If 2 veterans with a plan, a journalist's nose for the truth, and a stubborn diner owner could dismantle a criminal empire hiding in plain sight, how many more of these normal neighborhoods are really hiding threats? How many more Jeromes and Calvins are out there fighting for justice while we're just having coffee? You tell me. Drop your thoughts below. Who was really right or wrong? Is justice ever that simple, or are our communities a lot more complicated than we care to admit? If this story hit you like it did, share your take, because sometimes the biggest stories are brewing right next to your eggs and bacon, and the fight for truth is just getting started.